Hello and welcome to the Sports Gazette. We're back with a new podcast this time around. Some of you will remember my voice or kind of recognize my voice from the One Shot podcast, but it's a new podcast, it's a new day, new podcast, and we're going to be talking about Indian athletes on this podcast. And to start off is a very special episode because it's an Olympic special. While the weather in Paris is turning gloomy, we have a lot of energy today on the podcast. And I'm very quickly going to introduce my co-host, first of all, for today, Manas. Manas Gera is with me on the podcast today. Manas, how have you been?
I've
And
been
I'm
good.
counting on you to introduce our very special guest.
I will try my best, Ayush. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yeah, Paris has been rainy at this point in time, but we make sure London has a bit of a better weather. And it is our honor. Ayush and I have been discussing this for quite some time. It is our honor to have a very special guest over here on this very special podcast. He's a man, a former international English cricketer who's got 50 tests to his name, picked up 167 wickets in those test matches. And if you're still not convinced by those credentials, let me also tell you that his first test wicket was that of Sachin Tendulkar. Monty Panesar, it is awesome to have you with us on this podcast. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, and thanks for obviously having me. I'm super excited about. Normally, I'm talking about GB athletes, but this is slightly out of my comfort zone, and I'm loving to know more about Indian athletes because I think they're going to make some big, major moves. You know, there's going to be a lot after the end of this Olympics. We're going to be a lot of celebrations. There's going to be a lot of people getting the Bharat Ratna Award from Narendra Modi. I reckon there'll be a lot of athletes getting silver, gold medals, and I think it's going to be a really good tournament for Indian athletes.
Right, Monty, before we get into it, I want to ask you if there's a battle between Team GB and India at the Olympics, how's it going to be?
Depends if it's a hockey. I reckon India's a stronger team. But Team GB, they're very good at hockey. They've done really well over the past few years. But we often see, the team that I think all the other hockey teams that tend to sort of mark themselves up against is India. India's the one who sort of is very strong hockey, and they haven't done obviously very well recently. When they were, I think, in the European Pro League, they were just above Spain and Ireland, which is, I think India could do better than that. They were seventh in that, so I think they start on the 20th of July. And yeah, they are very much looking forward to their campaign.
Right. And, we definitely talk about the hockey, as you mentioned, Monty, that India, you have to talk about them when it comes to hockey, right? 8 gold medals in India's history in the past in just that one sport. But I'm so glad you mentioned that this Olympics could really be, in many ways, game-changing for India. It could be their biggest Olympics yet, the most successful, I should say. And that is much of the discourse and much of the sentiment back home as well. I mean, we're all far away from home right now, but I mean, at least Manas and I are here in the UK, miles, thousands of miles away from home. But just gauging the sentiment, talking to people back home, everyone is optimistic of India's best ever medal tally. And we're coming into the Paris Olympics from Tokyo, where India had its, well, as of now, up to now, the most successful Olympics, 7 medals at the Tokyo Games. Yeah, I mean, looking at it from the angle of some of the world-class squads, it's not really up there, but still, India's, we're slowly growing and I mean, it was slow, but I think that pace has really increased of now, the growth of Indian sport apart from cricket. And of course, Monty, you know better than anyone about the growth of cricket. But yeah, so just talking about this, India, for the first time, we are very optimistic of a double-digit medal tally, 10 and anything more than 10, right? And when we talk about medal hopes for India, it's just it's just natural that the first name that pops into our heads is Neeraj Chopra. He is the man. I mean, I was talking to this former Olympian shooter, Rahi Sarnobat, a few days ago, and she told me that Neeraj's medal, it's proof that it can change the face of a sport in the country. And that's what his medal did. He's now the face of the Indian Olympic contingent. Monty, just, let me start with you on this. What are your thoughts on Neeraj? How much, have have you seen of late? And because he is the reigning Asian champion, world champion, and Olympic champion. So a massive hot favorite.
Yeah, look, Neeraj Chopra is probably the face of Indian athletics. And I know cricket takes some major headlines, but when I was in India, Neeraj Chopra was the guy who's getting a few adverts up there with the likes of Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and a few of the others. So I think when we talk about Indian athletes, it's more about their story, where they come from, how they get to here, the bigger stage that they represent. The funding has increased. We've got the Ambani family involved. They're involved at the committee level. They want to bring Olympics to India. Let's be honest. Let's be frank about this. They want to bring Olympics to Ahmedabad. I think 2036. That's the time they're looking for it, and they're already going to plan for that. And believe me or not, the Indian people are very ambitious, very productive in their work rate. I was there in India in Kolkata. They're talking about cricket. When the World Cup was T20 World Cup was going really well. But Olympics was very much on the agenda. They really feel there's a huge sense in India right now that this is going to be the best Olympics ever for India. They are really firmly believing in that. And I think Neeraj Chopra is the guy who leads the way. He'll probably, will get a medal. He gets another gold. I think, the funding needs to go through the level, for these athletes. We hear so many other stories about different sports, what happens in India afterwards they finish the tournament. I really hope after this Olympics, all the athletes who win medals, or all the ladies and the men who've competed, they're well looked after. The funding, there's a good 4 to 5 year plan with funding, with training and everything, because so much talent there and 1 billion population. So I really believe that this will surprise. It's like make athletes great again in India. And let's be honest, this Paris Olympics, we will see some great stories of Indian athletes.
Absolutely, Monty. That's the hope. And I wanted to ask you one question about Neeraj Chopra. As you mentioned, in India, back home, we have seen him on all the posters and all the ads in the newspapers. We've seen him putting up sponsored posts on Instagram. So since the Tokyo Olympics, it's been a good time for him and he deserves all the adulation that he's received. But here's the thing, winning gold is one thing, defending gold is another thing. And you've been an athlete at the highest level, right? So what does it take to defend the crown of a gold medal? What does it take to stay driven even after winning a gold medal?
Yeah, look, I remember when I rose, the top 10 rankings in bowling very quickly. I think I was number 6 or number 4 in the world, right? Very quickly. So then consequent series, you actually have to work harder on your emotional energy, your mental state, your preparation, little things like, I didn't really care about my pillow. I used to take a Pacific pillow to every hotel from home. That was good for my sleep. And we often talk about the 1%ers, the diet, what time you go to sleep, what time you get up, the food you eat, the preparation you do before you go into your training, how you're feeling after training. So your feedback becomes much more deeper, much more analytical. It's not just about play your natural game or, what my natural talent is, because most of these athletes are naturally gifted. Let's be honest. They find their own sport very easy and they're very good at it. But then the 1% starts happening. Why was that a very good javelin throw? Why did you do very well today? What was your preparation? Every little detail starts taking place. And then you start it's like attention to detail. That starts happening in your life. You can be very analytical about it. You can think, oh my God, I didn't have the right pillow. That's why I didn't do well. Or I forgot to get up at the right time. Or I didn't get my right portion of breakfast. But generally speaking, little things like that is what these athletes will be doing, which is on a different scale to cricket. We're a team sport, but individually, these little things are the 1%ers that are gonna give them that opportunity to get a silver or a gold medal or bronze.
Right. And, that's the such an interesting insight on the pillow that you spoke about, used to travel with, and that's the kind of insights you only get from an elite athlete, and we're just so honored that we get that from someone like Monty Panesar today. I'm so glad you mentioned about the 1%ers and those small things off the track or off the field or off the pitch that also matter, right? And talking about, getting those things right, India for the first time at these Olympics have also, the Indian contingent is also accompanied by a chief nutritionist and a sleep coach. This is what the biggest teams in the world have been doing for a long time. And India's finally catching up. So just these things, and I've spoken to both of them. Of course, I'll be kind of releasing interviews that I did with them very soon as well. So guys, do look out for that on the Sports Gazette. But it's just talking to those people gave me such insights. It was just so clear from the way they were saying that India is finally catching up. This is something that we for a long time ignored, having these small things kind of behind the scenes which you won't see on TV, but like you said, Monty, those one percenters that can make the difference. So off the field as well, we're really leveling up. And yeah, it shows with guys like Neeraj and someone else as well, I mean, many of them, but there's one in particular, another really strong medal hope. Manas, let me start with you on this one, is Mirabai Chanu. She's coming off a silver medal. She's done so well for India. This time she's another one who we think can turn that silver into gold. She's been riddled with a lot of injuries of late, but again, it's Mirabai Chanu and she's a strong contender.
Yeah, absolutely. I think her winning silver was one of the greatest parties there was in Indian sport. And one thing that I love most about Mirabai Chanu is the fact that, of course, she is an elite athlete. A lot of hopes pinned on her for this Olympics. But the smile at the end of the events that you can see on her face, the glee, the genuine happiness that you see on her face is something. I know this is not professional insight that you're going to get from a journalist, but it's just so good to see an athlete truly enjoy their sport. And in today's time where sometimes you see athletes get too involved, like sometimes social media can bring you down, sometimes the pressure of winning can bring you down, but she just seems like somebody who is enjoying being at the highest level of the sport. And Monty, would you agree with that? Like, how tough is it to stay in the moment and realize that you are one of the lucky few? As you said, you're one of the 1% in the world to be privileged enough to be living the dream of a billion people back home in India.
Yeah, look, I think it's a different scale when it comes to myself, because let's be honest, I know I played for England, but there weren't many spin bowlers around during my time. And England weren't renowned to have a lot of great spinners. They did play and they did well, but not like, we never used to have an out and out, during our time, Darren Gough, Andrew Caddick were the guys who, did really well as seamers. So seamers were, you look at England, you always think good opening, middle order batsmen and good fast bowlers. You never associate it with spin. And this is a similar thing with India. You don't associate Indian athletes. You think India, like, the men's hockey team, which we'll come on to, or Indian cricket, really. We don't really think about Indian athletes as such in terms of, oh, India is a team that is going to do well in the Olympics. We never associated ourselves, like that. And it would always be China, America, United Kingdom, some of the other European countries, do quite well, Australia. But now I think India, there's some really good athletes, there's some very good ones. And in particular, I'd like to touch on Lavina, the boxer. I actually met her. And she was brilliant, and we did obviously talk about mindset with her and what makes her a champion. And I think there's a genuine, as much as we talk about Indian students coming to England and their productivity is, I always believe, much higher. I think they're very career-driven focus. I think there's we often talk about, athletes' mindset is dictated by maybe Americans, really. They come up with new books, new philosophies, the rest of the world follow. But I think the Eastern side now, India's creating their own, they're creating their own way of doing things, which the Western world is catching on. And that hopefully is a reflection in this year's Olympics.
Right, Monica, I'm glad you brought that up. So You said you've done a bit of boxing yourself, and you met one of India's greatest hopes in Lovelina. How was it? What was the meeting like? What do you guys talk about? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, we was at a cricket. I was playing cricket for LLC, and she was there on the same hotel. And I was like, and she just wanted a picture. She recognized me, and then I said to her, "Oh, you're the professional boxer, Lavina." And she goes, "Yes." And then I go, "I'm into boxing as well." And then we had a bit of a real good chat about boxing is really good for her to keep her mind sharp, agile, quick thinking, be quick on your toes. Lovelina is, I think, a big hope for medal, and I think she's going to do really well. And I think her major threat is probably from China, really, Li Kang, who actually, she's always got the better of her. You know, in the last World Championship, she semi-final, I think she won. So I think, and it's also she's a female. You know, you look at that empowerment in terms of a female winning a medal, hopefully a gold medal in India. You know, that taboo of, well, it's only the men who can play sport, but women, are not supposed to play sport. It's changing. You know, India's becoming very progressive, very modern thinking, and hopefully it's a reflection in the women being successful, where it genuinely is like, no, I can equally have a career in sports, be successful, make a living out of it, because there's infrastructure, there's a lot of money being involved. We got the Ambani family I talked about, the wife of Mukesh Ambani. She's part of the committee, and again, that's massive for India, massive for female empowerment, massive for women empowerment in India. So, in the past, we would say, oh, yeah, but, India, very much it's cricket, hockey, and all of this. But female participating, doing well in the Olympics, is going to be so important. How, the perception has changed about females participating in sport in India as well.
For sure, Monty. And I feel like there are a lot of we were going through the list of the hopefuls for India at the Olympics. Most of the names that we've come across are women. And another woman boxer that I want to talk about is Nikhat Zareen. So she is, again, one of the hopefuls for India. And the thing with her herself, right? In addition to a lot of the challenges that boxers usually face, she has faced a few cultural challenges. So when she was a young, aspiring boxer, her mom told her that, Nikhat, listen, I'm not certain about boxing, because what if you have some facial injuries? Tumhari shaadi kaise hogi? Like, how will you get married? These are the cultural concerns that an Indian mother usually has. So how challenging do you think are these? How challenging is it to say to get past these hurdles that they face back in India and countries where cultural challenges are pretty prevalent in these sports?
Yeah, I'm lucky to be in England and the UK, so it's a different maybe mindset here compared to India. So I think culturally there are going to be these barriers which we don't understand, and I think that's going to be the great thing about during the Olympics, is to actually hear about some of the cultural barriers, some of the great stories that Indian athletes have to face that a normal athlete in the Western countries, we just think it's normal. It's, if you want to play any sport, you're good at it, go ahead. Not going to think about, oh, right, but what if you, get some facial injuries, then, you'll be difficult to get married and all of that kind of stuff. That's kind of stuff, it doesn't, England maybe have different challenges, compared to other countries, but I think India's trying to catch up with the world when it comes to sports. It's just trying to accelerate and fast track any good athletes to come and really showcase India, Olympics isn't just about, the big nations or, the great, stories. It's also about, like India, like some other nations, coming through great stories to show that actually we are equally mentally resilient as rest of the world. We can push ourselves through the toughest barriers and be really successful, and I think that's why it's great to see, like I talked about, Lovely, again, a boxer, female, doing a sport that is something 20 years ago you wouldn't imagine in India, to happen. But she's doing it, representing it. And I really hope she does well, because her focus, you're so focused, so driven, just want to succeed, want to get a medal. And I think that is the attitude, that's the attitude of young India at the moment. They're saying, we want to show the rest of the world we do exist, and we are here to prove something.
Yeah, and
Right.
that, I'm so glad you mentioned that as well, because yesterday I was watching an interview with Gagan Narang, one of India's shooting medalists from the London Games in 2012. And he's the chef de mission of the Indian contingent this time around. He's, kind of the father figure for them over there. And when talking about the shooting contingent yesterday, he said something really interesting. He's like, yeah, these guys are not thinking of a medal, they are thinking of a gold medal. And that fits in so well with what you just said, right, Monty? It's that attitude that they have that, okay, we're not going to be pushovers anymore. We're here to compete. We're not just here to get a medal. If we get a medal, of course, it's great, bronze or silver, but our aim is going to be that gold. And that brings me to another woman. I'm just so glad that it's great when, it's the women who are the majority among the medal hopes, especially for India. One such athlete who is looking to convert a previous bronze and a silver this time into a gold and thus go into the history books as India's single most successful Olympian ever is PV Sindhu. She, the badminton superstar from India, back-to-back medals in Rio, then in Tokyo. She's got the silver, she's got the bronze. The gold medal is remaining. Monty, what do you think of her chances?
Yeah, look, this is a person, if she wins a medal, right? Hopefully, I think she will be her third straight Olympic medal, right? And that's a phenomenal achievement. That's something that, again, shows how progressive, obviously, India is and how progressive it's going to be in the next sort of, 4 to 8 years. It's one area in the world where everyone has their eyes on is India, because in every aspect, and Olympics is going to be so important for India in terms of securing world, status, world recognition. You talked about, often there is that perception of Indian athletes, pushovers, Indian cricket, fast bowling, whatever, don't have the mental resilience. You push them over, and that's it. We beat them, but they're getting up. They're saying no. We want to show that we are equally or even better. And I think seeing so many athletes available, and like the one you talked about, who's got an easy, I think she's got quite an easy ride until the quarterfinals. She's played 75th rank. Christine, she's going to play, hope she'll beat that. Then she's got Abdul Razak, 111th, ranking, and then, she's got a quarterfinal. So I think for her, it's going to be more important that she gets gold. For India will be a bigger story worldwide and India, because, like we said, if she gets gold, it'll be a third Olympic medal. To do it, because it's easy. First time around, it's a great story, Once you know the experience of Olympics, to lift yourself up again and win, but win big, that's a big story. That will be a game changer in India if she gets gold this time around.
Oh, without a doubt, it's going to be a massive, massive moment if she gets there. And like you mentioned, yeah, it should be a comfortable ride until the quarterfinals, and that's when, the biggest challenges, her arch rivals come into the picture. I think she's even drawn against He Bingzhou in the quarterfinals itself. That's going to be really tough. So, but yeah, it's PV Sindhu. She's a world champion from the past. She's a two-time Olympian, so never count her out, despite the kind of, she may not have been up to her best standards, or fitness would have been a concern in the build-up, but it's PV Sindhu at the end of the day. And I think, Manas, I want to ask you about.
I wanted
No,
to ask
ahead.
one question about PV Sindhu, right? So,
Yeah.
like, until the quarterfinals, it is a relatively smooth passage. But in the quarterfinals, she's facing the Olympic champion, as you mentioned, Monty. How did you do it back in the day, Monty? Like, when you were playing international cricket for England, if you had like an over where you got hit for boundaries against a batter, how did you come back from that? Like, what was your mindset like in the next match playing against the same batter? So because
It's a great question, because there's a few times I played against India, a few times against Australia. They were the real big series. And for me, like, for example, going to India was a big moment, big challenge. The attention, spinning tracks. I'm always in the game. Doesn't matter what time during the test match. I've always got to be ready because of spinning pitches. the condition of the ball, the batters, they all play with a different tempo. Some, would bat all day, others will come after you. And having that mental resilience to bowl long periods of time. So sometimes I would train where I get physically tired, bowling over, do running in between, come back again, get to a point where I'm physically exhausted, and then see if I've got the mental resilience to keep testing my technical skill under pressure when I'm physically exhausted, seeing how it is. So I'm sure she would have her own techniques as well. Some of these athletes, where they would think, well, there'll be a lot more attention now, isn't it, on Indian athletes? There's more to expect. It's not like this is a novelty for them. There's no a novel story here. It's actually everyone's expecting Indian athletes to do well now. That's what there is. And to raise the bar even further, like you guys mentioned, it's like, it's not silver, it's not bronze. We're going for gold medal.
Yeah.
We want to be remembered, the winner. We don't want to be there to think we were silver or bronze. And that's very much Indian mentality. They want to be winners. That's all they want to be. They want to be remembered as winners. And sometimes you do get motivation. You look at the Indian winning the T20 World Cup. How brilliant was that? That is a motivation itself to think, guys, look at the resilience they had. They should have won in Ahmedabad versus Australia, the 50 over World Cup, but they did it again here. These are the stories. Like, I remember when I played for England, we would have stories about the England Lions, the rugby team, the football team, the athletes. We have guest speakers coming in. We have just the whole story of what resilience looks like and get motivation from it. And I'm sure that's what these Indian athletes will be doing. They'll be looking at the likes of the Indian cricket team and thinking, look how well they've been doing over the last 4 to 5 years, the resilience they have. Let's us, take that into our game and actually really show that we are here to win the gold medal. We want the national anthem of India to be played when we win. And I think that will be a huge motivation for them.
Absolutely. Monty, I was in at Wankhede when you were running riot through the Indian batting lineup in 2012. I saw Kevin Peterson's 180, and then I was there for the start of India's second innings. Of course, it was that tour is so famous for what yourself and Graham Swan did throughout that tour. That was the main reason that England won that tour. It's such a historic moment because no one goes to India and beats India in cricket, but and in that moment, it was just the loudest cheer I've ever heard for anyone in my life when Sachin Tendulkar walked out the bat. And then when, Gautam Gambhir and the others were playing as well. But you were unfazed by that because you were still bowling to your plan. You stuck to your guns. And I think in that innings as well, you got Sachin out eventually. I can't exactly remember, 12 years ago. But that's another thing that Indian athletes are going to face playing in Olympics away from home, right? And we know that the French crowd, especially in sport, can get really hostile. We've seen that in tennis. We've seen that in other sports as well. So there are going to be situations. For example, Rohan Bopanna in his first match, he and Balaji are up against a French pair. So, when you're away from home, of course, Indian fans are everywhere. They're going to be in Paris as well. But when you're in that kind of situation where every person in the stand is kind of, against you, or maybe not against you, but very, very aggressively for the other person. And you're still supposed to or expected to deliver the biggest performance of your life. How do you manage that mentally as a top level athlete?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question. We had a separate meeting about that, about the crowd and the hostility, in India. Even when we go away, like Australia's like that, but especially India, because the crowd's basically 95% just supporting India. They're not here to support us. And we just put it down as noise. So it's just background noise. We're going to completely ignore that. It's background noise. And we knew very quickly that once we get on top of India, the crowd actually go against India very quickly as well. They suddenly start shifting towards them. And then that's the moment we were waiting for. We're like, guys, this is background noise. Ignore it. And then let's get on top of India and see, if we can dominate the test match, dominate each session, dominate key moments. And then the crowd started turning against them. So that's also going to be, I think, a challenge for the Indian athletes, because, in India, they build up an athlete like a god status. These Olympic athletes are now getting godlike status in India. They worship we saw when the India won the T20 World Cup. Look at in Mumbai, it was like, Messi in Argentina. The fan following, the love for cricket, love for the athletes is phenomenal. It's not something even the Premiership teams face in England. It's a crazy level of love and affection. But also, equally, it goes the other way. So if these top athletes who men's hockey team is another one I'm looking at trying to do really well. We've got three or four athletes here who we think going to get a medal and hopefully get gold. But if they miss out by a point, because that's what Olympics is about, 0.1, a second, just little margins. That little margin, suddenly the whole crowd, the whole India, that's it. No media attention, no nothing. They'll switch on them, and they have to deal with that. And now sometimes you don't understand how difficult it is being an Indian athlete. You get the massive applaud, and if the world will change for them if they get a gold medal. But if they come fourth, it'll be like coming last. It's like, did they really even compete in the Olympics? You know what it's like, that the views quickly change, and they're very aggressive sometimes as well. So they've got to be strong enough for that as well. You've got to be tough, to represent India, and I'm sure they've got, hopefully, good advice how to deal with it all as well.
Actually, that is a perfect segue into one of the athletes that we wanted to talk about, is Vinesh Fogart. So back in India, honestly, athletes sometimes are celebrated the way the Indian cricket team has been celebrated back in Mumbai. Those pictures that you envision, Monty, I'm from Mumbai, and that was the day I missed Mumbai the most. But on the other side, right, there is an athlete, Vinesh Fogart. And last year, she had one of the most challenging years. There was an ACL injury involved last year. She also had a very public protest against one of the chief of the WFI, the Wrestling Federation of India, and due to which there was a lot of online trolling that she had to endure in that period of time. Which brings me to the question of social media. We already spoke about Nikhat Zareen, who has spoken to Al Jazeera and said that I'm off social media during my preparation for the Olympics. And Vinesh Fogart herself, like, I've had the fortune of interviewing her personally, and she says that social media has not been the best for her, especially during preparation for an event as big as this one. Vinesh Fogart, once again, is going to be competing at the Olympics. Once again, she's one of our strongest hopes. How much does this outside noise affect you and your preparation going into this, and what advice would you give to an athlete going into the Olympics when it comes to social media and noise around them?
Yeah, look, I think when I was playing for England, I had a mentor, I had a life coach with me outside the cricket circle, someone I could just let my turban down, chat wherever I want to talk about, and have that. I think all of these athletes will have a personal coach. And if they don't, I think they should. And they're the ones where you go to. You kind of like have your agents or your managing team to deal with social media. They'll pump the social media because of the visibility. You need the PR to get, obviously, then the sponsorship deals and everything else goes with it. That's just part of agency or marketing work. But you are like in your four walls. You're like, it's you're in a little prison cell. It's you and your life coach, your family. You got your mentor, and that's your conversation, really. And I think it's a tunnel vision focus. It's like, I'm just focused on what I need to do, my preparation, execute my skill, hopefully get the medal, and then that's it. Like, there's no external stuff. There's no I want to know what else is happening with the other athletes or the other countries or anything like that. You're trying to keep it very simple, and also you're trying to take the importance out of it. You don't want to be thinking about what the reaction back home is, everything like that. It's like, I know the Olympics, but let's be honest, we also got to put things into perspective. Let's say we're Neeraj Chopra, for example. It's like, how many javelin throwers are there, in the world? How many javelin throwers are there in India? How many? So when you drop it down, think actually it's not that important, is it? There's not many javelin throwers. So you trying to take the importance out of the occasion. So you deliver your skill, and then when you perform, then afterwards everyone's going to applaud you, and then that's up to the agency and the agents and your management team to maximize it and to then become, by winning, the more gold medals Indian athletes win, the bigger the story, the bigger, interesting things will come out of India, and more funding will be available. Suddenly, the multinational companies want to be part of it. They want to be part of your success. So I really hope India, does really well in this year's this Olympics at Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Indian Olympics, of course, is, it's incomplete without talking about hockey. It's like we said at the start of the show, right? 8 gold medals in India's history, but the last of those gold medals was 1980. That's 44 years ago. And, there was so much over the years. It's like you said as well, Monty, earlier, that, more than cricket, it's hockey, right? That India's history in terms of sport is known for. But at the last Olympics, we again saw glimpses of us getting back to that level. The men's team won bronze at the Tokyo Games, and they are really strong. They are the kind of team who now, on their day, can beat anyone. And that was the case in the build-up to Tokyo as well, Paris as well. Of course, the form has been a little bit up and down in maybe the last year or something like that. But again, it's Indian hockey. It's in the blood of these players to perform at the highest level when it comes to that sport. What do you reckon of the chances going into Paris?
Yeah, I think they got a great chance. I think they obviously had a camp in Bangalore, and then they were in Switzerland as well. So Indian hockey is always, I feel, done well, but not consistently got the medals. Always the flair, the talent, the things that they do. Even like GB hockey team will look at it and think, wow, Indian hockey, very talented, very good, but underachieved, I think, when it comes to Olympics. So I think you need hockey to be strong, I feel, in India. When hockey is strong, it starts, helping other sports. So I think I really would like to see Indian hockey, do well this year, which will then suddenly open the conversation, especially in India, to think, oh, this wasn't a one-off success. It's like we can see that by Indian hockey doing well and other athletes done well, it adds to the story by hockey having a rich history, a deep history in Indian sport, that it's doing well in Olympics. It starts then opening a wider audience in India to start then following other sports that hopefully will do well for India.
Yeah, winning bronze at Tokyo was already one of our proudest moments. Getting a silver or a gold rather. Let's not even say silver. Winning the gold in Paris is of course going to be huge. Monty, like we've spoken about multiple sports at this point. We've spoken about wrestling, boxing, badminton. We've spoken about hockey right now. We've spoken a lot about cricket as well. I wanted to ask you, this is going to be the last Olympics without cricket. Next Olympics 2028 is going to have cricket involved in it. How does that make you feel?
Excited. I feel it's great. I also think it gives an opportunity for it to grow. It's in America next time round. And I really, hope that a lot of the other countries do prepare themselves, and it's not just the big three that dominate. I want to see other countries come up and do really well, and some of the smaller nations. So I think it's exciting times for cricket. Cricket's going through a really pivotal moment right now where I think the game is changing, where batsmen treat each ball as a free hit. There's no such thing as respecting good line and length. I think they just whack it out of the ground, and the bowlers are beginning to understand that. So I think IPL has a huge contribution to that. I also think that the 100, which we are just beginning started in England, they are going to be the next month a sales pitch. It's going to be, I think, one of the Americans that may take over, or some of the Indian IPL owners getting involved. And this is a month-long sales pitch, you know, to see if the likes of Google, Microsoft, some of the other NFL teams to actually invest in the 100. And if they do that, then I think that could be a real game changer when it comes to in 4 years' time when cricket is in the Olympics in LA.
Should be fun. Should be fun. I'm sure all of us Indian fans will be watching the LA Olympics pretty closely, especially for the cricket. But yeah, Monty, like it's been awesome having you. Ayush, do you have more questions? I don't want to take too much more time from Monty.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about so much, right? I mean, because we've spoken about the big contenders, right? And even then, it's just there are some that you would still end up missing because, like, has been the kind of gist of this episode that India is rising across sports. It's not just one, two, or three sports. The traditional hockey or athletics of late or wrestling and things like that. Look at shooting as well. We have currently in one of the events a world record holder who's in Sif Kaur Samra, who's another, medal hope in her category, and a couple of others as well. See Manu Bhakar going to be participating in 3 different events. So it's another sport where we are world class. So yeah, I mean, just to look at every Indian athlete who could do something, that's going to be a very, very long discussion. But yeah, it's been so wonderful to have Monty's insights on this episode, especially having played a different sport, but at that level, as so many of our Indian athletes have. Monty, it's been an absolute pleasure having you today.
Yeah, and I'm thank you. We're exciting to start our podcast just focusing on Indian athletes, and hopefully over the coming couple of weeks we're able to pick up some really good stories and really go deeper into them, and I'm so excited about that. So I look forward to catching you guys on the second one.
Absolutely. As Monty said, guys, we will be coming up with more episodes going forward, especially in these next couple of weeks or the fortnight of the Olympic Games. It's a very exciting time.
Monty, thank you so much for being with us. It's been awesome having you on board. Monty, before I let you go, I just wanted to ask you, we've spoken a lot about this. How many times have you dismissed Sachin Tendulkar?
Well, we'll discuss that in the next episode.
That's your cue to come back for the next episode. Thank you so much, Monty. We'll see you guys soon.
See you guys. Have a good one.